Every year, the world spends around $130 billion on chocolate, a treat so universal it has become a symbol of comfort, luxury, and celebration. You'll find it everywhere, from high-end boutiques in Europe to the checkout counters of local stores across the globe. But behind this sweet obsession lies a staggering injustice. The countries in West Africa, especially Ghana and Côte d'Ivoire, produce more than 60% of the world's cocoa, the essential ingredient in chocolate. Yet these nations earn less than 6% of the total profits from this massive global market. For decades, this imbalance has been accepted as normal, a brutal system where African farmers do the hardest work but gain the least reward. But now Ghana, the world's second-largest cocoa producer, is taking a bold stand. For the first time, the country is moving away from its traditional role as a raw bean supplier. Instead of demanding a slightly bigger share of the chocolate pie, Ghana is aiming to bake the whole cake itself. This is not just a fight for fair pricing. It's a movement to rebuild national wealth, reshape identity, and take control of the country's economic future. To understand why this is such a monumental shift, you have to grasp the paradox at the core of the cocoa industry. Ghana and its neighbor, Côte d'Ivoire, are cocoa powerhouses, producing the raw ingredient found in over half of all chocolate bars around the world. In Ghana, cocoa is not just an export, it's a source of pride and a deep part of the national culture. The slogan, "Cocoa is Ghana and Ghana is cocoa," speaks volumes about its significance. Even though the crop's importance has declined due to the rise of gold and oil, it still brings in around $1 billion annually and supports more than 800,000 farming families. But while Ghana grows the beans, the real money is made elsewhere. The vast majority of profits in the chocolate industry come from processing, manufacturing, and branding, steps that mostly happen in Europe and North America. Countries like the Netherlands, Germany, and the US import Ghana's raw cocoa, turn it into premium products, and sell it for dozens of times the price paid to farmers. In Ghanaian supermarkets, you can even find imported chocolates made with Ghanaian cocoa, an absurd twist where the country buys back its own raw product in a more expensive, polished form. This system, rooted in colonial trade patterns, has kept generations of Ghanaian farmers trapped in poverty. Many earn less than $1 a day, and their incomes remain tied to unstable global commodity prices. One such farmer, a man named Kwabena in Ghana's Ashanti region, represents this grim reality. He wakes before sunrise, tends to a modest cocoa farm passed down through generations, and performs backbreaking labor to harvest and ferment the beans, all for a price that barely sustains his family. Despite the high quality of Ghana's cocoa, Kwabena will never afford the chocolate bars made from his own beans. He is legally required to sell to the state-run Ghana Cocoa Board, which for years paid so little that smuggling cocoa across borders became a lifeline for desperate farmers. Although the government has recently increased prices to give farmers around 70% of the world market rate, the improvements are still too little to escape poverty. Worse yet, younger generations are abandoning cocoa farming altogether, choosing instead the dangerous but fast-paying path of illegal gold mining, known locally as galamsey. So how did such a wealthy resource become a poverty trap? The answer lies in history. Cocoa's roots in Ghana go back to 1879, when a blacksmith named Tete Kwarshi brought the first pods to the country, sparking an agricultural boom. By 1911, Ghana was the world's top cocoa exporter. But under British colonial rule, the cocoa trade was set up for extraction, to cheaply supply raw materials to British factories, not to build local industries. A marketing board was formed in 1947 to control prices and profits. After independence in 1957, Ghana kept the system, using cocoa money to fund national development. But the core strategy never changed: sell the raw beans, export the value. Meanwhile, multinational companies like Cadbury, Nestlé, and Hershey's perfected the art of processing cocoa in their home countries, capturing the real profits. For decades, Ghana remained stuck on the lowest rung of the cocoa value ladder. Farmers harvested and fermented beans, only to see their work shipped off and transformed into products they could never afford. The world became used to this division of labor. Africa grows the beans, the West makes the chocolate recently. However, Ghana's tone has shifted. The government is now aggressively pushing for value addition, a buzzword that holds the key to changing the country's fortunes. Value addition means processing and manufacturing at home, not abroad. It means building factories, training chocolatiers, and creating Ghanaian-owned chocolate brands. Instead of exporting raw beans, Ghana wants to move up the ladder to roast, press, and mold cocoa into premium finished products right on its own soil. The cocoa value chain has multiple steps, and each one increases profit. Roasting and grinding. The beans turns them into cocoa liquor, which is already far more valuable than the raw product. Pressing that liquor separates it into cocoa butter and cocoa powder, both of which are used in everything from desserts to skincare. The final step, combining ingredients, refining texture, branding, and packaging, is where the biggest profits lie. That's the stage Ghana now wants to own. The government has announced its goal to process at least 50% of cocoa domestically, a massive jump from the current levels. While this doesn't yet amount to a full ban on raw exports, it's a strong economic signal to the world. Ghana is done playing the role of supplier. It wants to be a producer, brand builder, and global competitor. This shift could change the game for farmers like Kwabena and for Ghana as a whole. By keeping more of the cocoa value chain at home, the country can create jobs, grow its economy, and break free from a century-old cycle of dependency. For the first time in generations, Ghana is climbing the ladder, and this time, it's not stopping at the first step. The logic is simple and deeply compelling. Why should Ghana continue to ship its raw cocoa to Europe, only to buy it back later in the form of expensive, finished chocolate? Why not build the infrastructure to process it at home, creating a seamless link from farms to factories? This is exactly what Ghana is setting out to do. The country no longer wants to be just a supplier of cocoa beans. It wants to turn cocoa into an engine of transformation, creating skilled jobs, building industries, and turning the Made in Ghana label into a global mark of excellence. And Ghana isn't alone. Across the African continent, a quiet revolution is underway. Countries rich in resources, from lithium in Zimbabwe to coffee in Uganda, are questioning the old economic model where raw materials are exported cheaply, only to be re-imported as expensive finished goods. More and more, these nations are realizing that their true wealth doesn't just lie underground. It lies in adding value, in processing, manufacturing, and branding for themselves. To meet its bold goal of processing 50% of its cocoa domestically, Ghana will need massive investments, not just in factories, but in reliable infrastructure, skilled labor, and technology. That means stable electricity, advanced logistics, and a business climate that supports innovation. Ghanaian chocolate will need to compete globally, not just in taste, but in scale, marketing, and quality. Of course, such a shift is bound to face resistance. The global chocolate industry is deeply entrenched, with powerful players in Europe and North America. If Ghana starts limiting raw cocoa exports, it could disrupt global supply chains, pushing prices even higher in an already volatile market. Chocolate companies could scramble to find new suppliers or be forced to pay more, costs that would likely be passed down to consumers. This also puts pressure on Ghana. Can it ramp up its local capacity quickly enough? Can it ensure farmers are not left behind in the process? These are critical questions. But for the first time, the drive to break free from an unfair system seems stronger than the fear of change. Ghana is making a bold declaration. Now comes the real work. And that work isn't just happening in ministries or boardrooms. It's happening on the ground, in small chocolate kitchens, in local factories, and in the hearts of Ghanaian entrepreneurs. People like the Addison sisters, founders of 57 Chocolate, named after the year of Ghana's independence. After a visit to Switzerland, they saw chocolate made with Ghanaian beans being celebrated globally and asked, "Why can't we do this ourselves?" Today, their Bean to Bar company roasts, processes, and packages chocolate right in Accra. featuring local symbols and ingredients that reflect Ghana's heritage. Then there's Niche Cocoa, Ghana's largest private cocoa processor, founded in 2011. Niche proves that large-scale value addition can happen in Africa. They don't just supply cocoa butter and powder. They've launched their own line of chocolate products, showing that world-class manufacturing is possible at home. Another innovator is Ferrofric, a Ghanaian-German venture that's pushing the concept of ethical chocolate to new heights. Instead of stopping at fair trade, they believe in full-scale local production. Their solar-powered factory in rural Ghana produces 100% of their chocolate on African soil, creating skilled jobs and retaining wealth in the community. They even started Ghana's first formal chocolate-making school to train the next generation of professionals. These are just a few of the many pioneers challenging the status quo. Companies like Madu Chocolates are infusing cocoa with African spices, while countless small businesses are emerging with unique stories and flavors. They all face huge hurdles, from erratic electricity to limited global brand recognition, but they share a common belief. Ghana's cocoa belongs to Ghanaians, and now is the time to own the full value chain. Ghana's plan to process more cocoa at home isn't just a national policy. It's a stone dropped into the center of the global chocolate industry, and the ripples could become waves. For over a century, global giants like Nestlé, Hershey, Mars, and Callebaut have relied on a stable supply of cheap cocoa from West Africa. If Ghana reduces its raw exports, it could cause a major shakeup, given that Ghana is the world's second largest producer. Any disruption in its supply would rattle markets already strained by climate-related crop failures and rising prices. The consequences could be huge. Big companies may face a choice: absorb the rising costs or pass them on to consumers. Either way, your favorite chocolate bar could get more expensive. It may also prompt a race to find new cocoa sources in Latin America or Asia, shifting the environmental and social burden elsewhere. But beyond the disruption, this move represents a deeper shift in power. If Ghana succeeds, and if Côte d'Ivoire joins in, they could form a kind of cocoa OPEC, with real influence over global pricing and production terms. This could force multinational companies to invest in processing facilities inside Africa, transforming them from buyers to partners. In turn, this could reshape the entire chocolate industry, which has remained largely unchanged for over a century or still. The challenges are massive. First is financing. Setting up modern cocoa factories at scale is incredibly expensive. It requires billions of dollars, high-tech machinery, and reliable utilities in a country that still faces power cuts and logistical bottlenecks. Then there's the issue of market access, competing with brands that have billion-dollar advertising budgets and global shelf space is no small feat. A new Ghanaian brand must fight for attention in crowded markets. From Tokyo convenience stores to Toronto supermarkets, it's David versus Goliath, but with chocolate. A new and growing concern is regulation, specifically the EU Deforestation Regulation (EUDR). Under this law, any product linked to deforestation will be banned in the EU, Ghana's largest market. To comply, Ghana must map all 800,000 cocoa farms to prove their beans didn't come from recently cleared forests. That's a huge logistical challenge, but failure could mean losing access to key buyers regardless of how good the chocolate is. And finally, there's the most important piece of the puzzle: the farmers. If the transition isn't managed with care, it could backfire. If local factories can't absorb the full cocoa harvest, or if payments are delayed, farmers could be left holding unsold beans. Trust must be built. The system must guarantee farmers fair, timely payments, or the entire plan risks collapsing. At its core, this isn't just a business decision. It's a bold attempt by a nation to rewrite its place in the global economy. For decades, Ghana has helped build chocolate empires, yet its farmers remain poor. This new strategy is about reclaiming that power, shifting from exporter to owner, from supplier to brand. The goal isn't just to make chocolate, it's to make change. The trailblazers behind this movement, from the Addison sisters at 57 Chocolate to the team at Niche to the innovators at Ferrofric, are already proving what's possible. They are redefining what made in Ghana means, and they're offering a vision of the future where African countries no longer send their treasures abroad, but transform them into global products at home. Yes, the risks are real, but so is the potential. If Ghana succeeds, it could light a path for other resource-rich nations, a path toward fairness, prosperity, and true economic freedom. The next time you unwrap a chocolate bar, remember, there's more than sweetness inside. There's a story, a struggle, and maybe soon, a revolution.